Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live. When you arrive, say hi. Let me see if we can get our comment stream importing. I don't. Here's the thing. We're gonna see if this works. We're using StreamYard for the very first time, and I'm gonna go over here and see if this. See, it did what I thought. Oh no! There it goes. It is actually working. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're not gonna have to switch streams. It looks like, but I don't know if I can see comments. I don't see any comments strolling in like we normally do, unless it's just on a big delay. Live viewer comments show up on StreamYard. This is an example. Well, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Can I see a real one? Because it's set to show comments on stage as well. And then there's the comment feed, but I just don't see anything in the comment feed. So it's going to be not great if I can't interact with people. What I can do is I'm going to pull up temporarily. I'm going to pull up the YouTube and I'm going to just look at the comments manually. Let me view the channel. So everybody hang with us. Bear with us for 1 second. Okay. We're going to pause the video. I think if I pause, I just mute it. Yeah. If I pause, the comment stream still works. Okay. Good audio. Good audio. Yeah, it works. Only 1080p. Yeah. StreamYard's only 1080p, unfortunately. They can hear you too, Mateo, even though you're not on the screen. So just be aware of that.
All right. Hi, everyone.
I think the comments aren't coming in because here's what happened. So normally with StreamYard, you schedule the live stream with StreamYard. And in this case, what I did is I had already scheduled the live stream ahead of time. And then I set up StreamYard and I connected StreamYard to the existing event. And I guess in that case, it does not pull in comments. So it's unfortunate. But I do have it pulled up in my other window and I think I can actually pop the chat out. Let me see if I can pop. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. All right. This will work perfectly. So I can actually pin this tab and I can just have the comments in that tab. That's fantastic. Okay. Let's pin this up here too. All right. That's going to work just fine. So we've got Fremo in the house, Zara, Henrik, Marcus, Sylvia, Robin, Aaron, Justin, Zach, a lot of familiar names and faces. If you are brand new, this is your first time on stream, like one of these Etch lives. I guess WDD doesn't count. It's just for Etch live. If this is your first Etch live, drop a first in the chat. Drop a first in the chat. Want to see how many people are here for the first time. And what we're going to do today, I'm just going to give you guys the agenda. We are the whole goal of this is we have worked very hard for an entire month. Okay. We do releases every single week. Sometimes there's multiple releases in a week. And, by the end of a month, we've accumulated a lot of great new stuff. What we like to do is we like to get on live. We like to demo that stuff. We like to show you the entire workflow, how everything is coming together and making your life easier as a developer. And then we like to do Q&A, answer your questions, do any technical demos that people request. So you can request demos, like say, hey, I want to see how to do this. Now, you can't ask for something that's going to take like an hour. Okay. It's got to be something relatively like, okay, yeah. I can go show you that real quick. Okay. If you want me to demo something, it's #demo. #demo. If you just have a question and you want me to answer it, it's #Q for question. And then I can sort these, which today, this is probably just going to be unsortable. So it's just going to be an absolute free for all, but we'll figure it out. The goal of this is obviously, I think users don't sit around studying change logs, right? So a few weeks go by, you might feel like, man, like many things were added. I have no idea. Well, this is the stream to catch you up. This is the stream to show you exactly what you should be paying attention to that's been released recently. And then that allows you to keep up with development, and that allows you to keep using the tool and not feel like you're falling too far behind. Okay. Of course, Etch does speak the language of web design. So for those of you who are studying web design, you have experience in web design, you are on the learning path, right? All on your own outside of Etch, you're, I think, naturally going to keep up with Etch anyway, because Etch is not it doesn't speak any proprietary language like most interfaces and builders try to do, right? They try to speak their own language. And if you don't keep up with what they're doing and the way they do it, you can easily get out of sync, right? But with Etch, it just respects the language of web design. So, if it's a fundamental of web design, you're going to be able to do it in Etch. You're not having to learn the builder and web design. You just learn web design, and then you pretty much know how the builder is doing things. All right. Justin says, wait, people don't study change logs. Well, not everybody is a plus customer like you, Justin. No, they don't. I wish they did. Trust me, I wish they did, because people will be like, hey, can Etch do this? I'm like, yeah, that was in the change log yesterday. I wish they did, but they don't. So these streams, a lot of people request these. They love these streams, as you can see by the numbers here, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I really wish comments were synced. It would make this a lot easier. Mateo, I'm going to have you manage kind of monitor the comments as well, because once I'm doing stuff on screen, they're just nowhere to be found.
Yeah, sure.
And if there's anything super important, you can stop me or, raise your hand, whatever. And I'll bring on Mateo real quick onto let's see. We can do this. We can do this. Look at all these options. Look at this.
So many
Look
options.
at this. Just throw them anywhere. Okay. All right. Mateo's our CTO. He pretty much manages the development workflow. Okay. So when we're doing these weekly releases and we're getting our priorities in order and, we're hitting our goal, that's Mateo, right? So making that happen. And he's also going to help answer any questions that we have today. Sometimes we have other dev team members on to answer technical questions, but Mateo can answer some technical questions as well, too, if I, for some reason, don't know the answer. All right, so we are going to start with two little notes, okay? Number one, hot off the press. I'm going to show you guys something hot off the press. Let me go share my screen. Okay, share screen, and let's go entire screen, and let's go screen one. All right, and let's go. Can everybody see that? Can you see that, Mateo? Is that working good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're going to go to Etch stuff. We are going to go to the change log. By the way, yeah, let's do this. If you don't know where the change log is, right, it's very easy to get to. It's right here, okay? You can click on it, or you can click on this link up here that says change log. But this is hot off the press. I just dropped this in the community. We now have JetEngine support for dynamic data for repeater fields, JetEngine support for gallery fields, JetEngine support for image fields. Of course, text fields, text area fields, all of that unserialized data already works in Etch out of the box. But some of their stuff is serialized and we have to process it in special handling. And so if you're a JetEngine user, you're really, really, really going to like this. Of course, Metabox is not far behind. Trust me, Metabox users, and we already have support for ACF, okay? So Metabox is not far behind. Just be patient. I understand. You really, really want the Metabox, okay? It is coming. But this is hot off the press. JetEngine support for these fields. That's a major, major thing for JetEngine users. Okay, so that is number one. Number two, let me click on my link and see if it works here. Template Monster awards this just landed on my desk. Okay. I don't know when they started doing, the voting and all of this, but I did get word that Etch was just added. Okay. So Etch was just recently added. You can go vote on it. I would highly encourage you to go vote. Send a message. Hey, this is right. This is I'm looking at a lot of era 2 and era 3 right here. Just saying, okay? We need to go vote for era 4, right? We need to go vote for era 4. So that is available, templatemonster.com and /awards/category/WordPress builders. While you're there voting, you might throw a vote in for automatic CSS. You might throw a vote in for the Geary.co inner circle. You might throw some other votes in while you're there. But the main thing, we want to send a message that, hey, era 4 is here. There's no reason pay attention to any of this other stuff that's going on. Okay. All right. So we got the change log. We got Template Monster out. Let's go ahead and talk features. First thing up is archive templates. I'm going to hop into Etch here. I'm going to go to the template manager. We don't need to really demo this. I will do feature videos about this, but they work just like any other template. The big difference here, let me see if I can zoom in. If you see this column right here that says taxonomies, that was not here before, okay? So that was added very early this month, but highly requested, obviously highly valuable, much needed. You can create single templates for custom post types or just regular posts. Obviously your index template, your 404 template, your search results template, but you could not create taxonomy templates before. You can now create taxonomy templates from right here. So you can do your category archive. You can do, I don't know who uses tags anymore in this day and age, but you can do a tag archive. And then if you register a custom taxonomy, like with ACF or MetaBox or JetEngine or what have you, that will show up right here as well. And you can add archive templates for those. So very, very important, very valuable archive template support landed early this month. Keep an eye out. We will do a feature video on, hey, here is how you create an archive template, okay? Next thing, full-time responsive mode with dynamic container queries and dynamic media queries. And this is combined with the rim function. This is probably like, again, talking era 4. This is a hallmark of like Etch does things differently than other interfaces and other environments and is leading the charge in how this stuff should be done. Every single builder that I know of in existence still uses the very old school and no longer sensical media queries, especially the ones with the icons like, ooh, desktop, a phone, okay, a wide phone, that looks like a tablet, okay? And then you're putting styles on these fixed media queries that are no longer relevant to anybody, okay? They're no longer relevant. That workflow does not work for the modern era, and nobody has had the foresight to be like, yeah, we should move on from this. We should migrate to a new approach, because we do have new approaches. One of them is container queries. Container queries are far more flexible than media queries. We're not going to do an entire breakdown of container. Actually, what I'll point you to, okay, if you're not on the up and up, okay, geary.co/blog. I want you to read this first article, the magical has me selector in CSS that fixes the one big gotcha of container queries. I want you to read this article, container queries versus media queries, a new era of responsive web design. Okay, so those are two pivotal articles. And then I want you to go to the Geary.co YouTube channel, and I want you to watch some of the explainer videos that I've already done on this. But I did think, just to kind of show this workflow and demo this workflow, I pinned a little thing up here. Now, we're not going to do this whole thing. What got me interested in this was this card right here, where I thought it was very interesting that this is very common. It's a very common pattern where I call them like stat cards, right? It's like a stat of the company, okay? So like 100 plus happy clients, that's like a stat. Or you might call them like a talking point or something like that. I just call them stat cards because it's shorter name, okay? I like short names when I can use short names. Very common pattern. Now, sometimes you want to have more like of a description of this stat, like more the ability to explain it. Like what does that mean, you know? But if you put it in a small space, like right now it's in a small space, you obviously don't have room for that. You can't show a long description. You can only show a short description, right? And so what we might be able to do is we might be able to make an example card here where we can see what is the workflow and how does Etch help you when it comes to container queries versus media queries. Because by the way, if you take this card with extra room for description and maybe it's going to be wider, you know, I don't even know. We're going to do it on the fly together. Just have some fun. And you put it in a smaller space, media queries can't do anything about that. Media query will just be like, okay, you put it in a smaller space and it'll just look broken. It'll just look terrible. But container queries are far more intelligent. Container queries say, oh, I see you put me in a smaller space. I'm going to reconfigure myself for this small space. And it reconfigures itself based on, obviously, the instructions that you gave it. All right. Is everybody following along, Mateo, in the chat? Are we hyped? Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing is that there is a weird gradient on the bottom right corner, and I'm not quite sure what's causing it. And
Oh, I know what it is. Hold on. I know what it is. We're going to see Inception here. It's probably the show comments on stage, and there's no comments.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
that would normally be where the comment feed goes. Let me pin StreamYard to here. We can get rid of this. Okay, we're going to leave the documentation up because we're going to need that again in a minute. Okay. So yeah, if you want to see this, if you want us to do this real quick, let's put an LFG in the chat. And then Mateo, what I would encourage you to do, probably because I don't think I'm going to be able to sort by the hashtag Q or hashtag demo. If you see any of those fly by, just maybe jot them down. And then I'll just have you go through the list because I'm
that's what I'm doing.
I can show people what I can see right here. This is what I see. I see a stream and I have no ability to, well, can I search? No, I don't. I have no ability to search, I don't think. Okay, let's just do live chat. All right. We got a lot of LFGs coming in. Fantastic. Missing the higher quality stream for viewing text on the screen. Yeah, and StreamYard has a higher plan, and it said 4K, and I got super excited, and I was like, I'm going to go for that. I'm going to do the 4K. And then I read the little fine print where it was like, that's recording only. It's not streaming in 4K. It's not great. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a lot for you, and hopefully that's going to help. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to clear this section out right here. Like I said, we're going to do this on the fly. I'm not actually going to work from that existing design. I'm just going to give you guys an example. And the first thing I'm going to do is just build a static stat card, right? And we can call this like stats list or something. And I'll put a flex div in here and I'll say stat card. And we could probably look at maybe how to do this with a JSON loop as well, because I don't really, it's just stats. Stats are obviously global to the project. But I don't want to create a custom post type for them. That's way too much architecture. They're not going to have their own URL. I don't need any of that heavy architecture. I just need something lightweight and quick and fast, and JSON is usually perfect for that. So stat card is going to be an article, and then I'm going to put text and text. This is going to be the stat. This is going to be the stat description. So I've got an article with stat and stat description. I'm good with that. I'm going to go ahead and create my BIM classes. This is going to be the stat. If we look at here, like we can just we'll do 99% client retention or something like that. Or we'll do something everybody understands, like, all these hosting companies, 99.9% uptime. Okay. We'll do uptime right here. Uptime. Is that one word? Okay. And then what we'll do is, so we'll have maybe a short description. How about we'll do stat description and then stat long description, maybe. Stat long description, okay? Stat long description, something like that. All right, this would just be, I don't know, like Ipsum. Actually, Ipsum, let's do Ipsum 20. Okay, oh, that's like rendering sometimes it's done that lately, Mateo. I don't know what's going on with that. I think we might have changed something and it's blocking and it happens in certain instances, but it's it's blocking Emmet. Let me go to website Ipsum, just grab some Ipsum real quick. Let's do this. Let's do this sentence right here. Okay, we don't need a lot. It's not going to be crazy. All right, let's paste that in. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Oh, I pasted an extra bracket, I believe, or I pasted in the wrong spot. Okay. All right, we are good. Now, I'm going to style this stat card up just a little bit. We can do something like font size, make it look like an H2, for example. White, so it stands out. We got kind of like a grayish text here, but we'll do white for the actual stat. Stat description, I think, can be good. How about the long description? We do a font size of text S, perhaps. All right, and that's, I need to take that off and put a new one on. So stat card, long description. And I'm going to steal that. I forgot I duplicated it. All right, let's go back to here. Fantastic. Okay, so that's pretty good. What we're going to do is add a little padding, add a little border, whatever, center this kind of stuff, make a couple of them, see how they look. And we might even, what I would probably encourage you to do is get the container query thing working and then add the JSON loop and loop through it, knowing that it's going to take care of itself. Okay. So let's finish this up. So let's go with justify content to the center. Let's go align items to the center. And let's go with padding of maybe 1em, something like that. Or we can use a variable. You know, I like to show everybody, it's like, you know, I use ACSS obviously all the time, but if you're the kind of person that just comes in here and slaps in ems or rims or whatever, like it, you know, it works. It all works. It's all CSS. Border radius of radius. Okay. Border of border. All right, let's save. Let's take a look. Okay. Let's check our borders real quick in here. Border, borders, border radius, border additional border options. Okay. Border style. Let's do light by default. Since this is a dark site, we don't want dark borders. All right. That's looking much better. I think this should actually be like an H1 size, maybe be even better. Okay. Perfect. Let's go with like a couple more. Now I'm going to take a look before I duplicate this at a really handy feature of Etch. This has been around for a little while now. I can't remember if it was like August or a month before that, but I use it all the time, multiple times per project. Actually, I find myself like, you know, you're doing project work day after day after day. It's like multiple times per day I'm using this. What I want is I want this to actually be a list. And what you would normally have to do in like a manual workflow is change that to a UL, wrap this in a div, change the div to an LI, and then you would have a UL with an LI and an article inside the LI. But in Etch, you can just create what you wanted to create and then say right click, convert to list. And now it's a list. It's just done. It's a semantic list now, right? And if I put stats list, here's another thing that we do with automatic CSS, just for people. A lot of people see this on the screen and they're like, whoa, what, I don't understand. What just happened there? What automatic CSS does is it recognizes that if you put a custom class on a list, like if you wanted a bullet list, typically it's just, that's a bullet list. Like it's not going to be some custom styled list, right? Because you can actually style bullet lists just without classes. If you put a custom class on it, it stands to reason you're doing something custom. You probably don't want that stupid little bullet, and you don't want the default margin or padding that the browser puts on lists. You don't want that stuff going on. So the minute I do something like stats list and I add it, notice that bullet and that padding, they go away because, and all I didn't tell it to do, I just put a custom class on. This is an automatic CSS feature that recognizes like, you're probably doing something custom here and you probably don't want the ugly bullet and padding. Like, you know, let's get that out of your life. If you want to add it back, you can. Okay. It's not like you can't get it back if you need it or want it. But it's just very helpful because 90% of the time you don't want that. And so it just gets rid of it for you. And in the 10% of cases where you might actually still want it, you can just add it back. It's way more efficient to add it back 10% of the time than to remove it 90% of the time manually, right? That's how that game works. Okay, so now I have a semantic list with a list item and an article card, and I would duplicate the list item a couple times. So now if we make this a grid, display of grid, and grid template columns, and you can do autocomplete here, and we can do something like grid 3. We're going to put those 3 things in the grid. Let's go text align of center. Fantastic. Okay. So we've got the stat, we've got the like short description, we've got the long description. And what we're going to do is if there's room like this for the long description, then we might hide the short description. And if there's not enough room for the long description, we might hide the long description and only show the short description. Okay, that's kind of how the logic should work here. Now, what I want to do first is I want to show you the container query workflow. Okay, and we can start, you can do this with the list or you can do this with the card. It really depends on how flexible you want this to be. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this handle over here. There's also a handle over here. And I can just drag it at any time. There is no like, let's enter responsive mode or anything like that. The canvas is always responsive. It's dynamically responsive. So at any time you want to check things, right, you could just do this. And you're going to see the canvas size up here, but you're also in very helpful fashion going to see the element, the selected element size, which actually comes in very, very, very handy when you are doing container queries. If you're doing media queries, you're going to want to know the canvas size because that's the media size, that's the device size. But if you're doing container queries, you need to know the size of the element that you are trying to work with. So Etch is going to give you both at all times, essentially, right? And so one thing you could check is, is my grid responsive? And obviously, my grid is not responsive. Now, I say container query workflow or container query first workflow. And I've had people immediately go, but I still want to be able to use media queries. And it's like, yeah, right. Like you didn't think we removed the ability to do media queries, right? It's you can still do media queries. It's just container query first. But let's say, because just to prove the point, okay, let's say I wanted to do a media query for the grid, and then I'm going to do container queries for the card, okay? So here's how media queries would look. And we can do this dynamically, and we can do this with a simple right click and a left click, okay? So the first thing I can say is like, where do I want this to become 3 columns? I want it to be 1 column on mobile. We're going to talk about like taking a mobile first approach to a media query, right? And saying, okay, a grid, because look at this. If I remove this, it's very important to understand these concepts, right? It's 1 column. Like, let's look at this on mobile. Is this going to look bad on mobile? No, it's going to look perfect on mobile. It's going to look absolutely perfect. So it doesn't make sense for us to change it to 3 columns and then at some breakpoint change it back to 1. Dude, it was already 1. Just leave it 1 and decide when it should be 3. That's what we need to do. That's the most efficient approach. So we're going to come out and say, where does that really need to be 3, right? And maybe we decide, hey, it's at 900 or something like this, okay? So what I can do is I can right click and say add media query. We've got add container query, add media query, add the has me selector, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But I can say add media query. And look what happens. It inserts a media query and it says width less than or equal to 900 pixels. And then there's this, let me zoom in because I'm now remembering in my head. Everybody said, hey, the text is a little blurry on the feed, okay? You should be able to see this now. All right. Ray Charles can see this right here. Let's talk about this rim function. This is very important. This is again, we talk about innovation. We talk about engineering. We talk about really thinking through these types of things. So we want to be able to use logical properties and such. We want to be able to use the new range syntax, okay? You can't do logical properties with media queries, I don't think, but you can with container queries. The range syntax here is very important because you don't have to do like max width versus min width or any of that. It's just like, hey, if the width is less than, like this is a very logical way to read this, right? If the width is less than or equal to 900 pixels, let's do something. In this case, I want it to be greater or equal to 900 pixels. We're going to do something. So I can just change the sign, right? But what is happening right here? Let's explain this. It is best practice to write media queries and container queries using rim values. But rim values are very unfriendly to use, right? If you saw a random rim value sitting here, okay, I don't even know what it would be because I can't do math because I went to public school. But let's say it was like 9.2 rim or something. Do you know where does that apply to? Where does that apply to? But you can understand 900 pixels, right? So we created this rim function. It's not rocket science, but it's awesome. And what it does is you get to put the number that makes sense to your brain in here. And then on the front end, it will just output the rim equivalent. And so you can just continue to work in pixels with your media queries and your container queries, but we will output the rim equivalent, which actually is very helpful. And the reason you want this is because as people change like the default browser size, right, of text, it's going to confine space differently, right? And the media that you planned for is no longer the same. And rim will adapt to that. So all of your values that you put in and say, hey, when it looks like this, I want it to change, it will map accordingly to the user changing their root font size, for example, okay? So if you use raw pixel values, it's not gonna do that. If you use rim values, it will do that. But there's the trade-off of I don't like using rim, we get it. Use pixels, put it in a rim function, which we already do for you, and you get a rim output, and all is well in the world, right? You get all the benefits with none of the downsides. That's what we're trying to achieve. In every scenario, we want you to get all of the benefits of doing things the right way with none of the downsides, okay? So now what do we want to do here? Well, we can say grid template columns, and we can say grid 3, okay? And I'll zoom back out, and you see that we get 3 columns, okay? Look at that, done. Then again, follow the logic. It's not change it to 3, then change it back to 1, right? The reason we didn't do this a lot, like if you go back and watch my old tutorials and other interfaces, we don't have to name them, okay? It's not easy to do this, right? It's not easy to do this because of the way that responsiveness was handled. Look, you can't do this in any other environment. You can't do that. You can't. The minute you change what you're previewing, this code goes away because they map code to specific breakpoints, right? They don't have a dynamically responsive canvas. I can look at any size and never leave my code view. I'm seeing the exact same code, and I can just write new code for this size, and I can go like that and write new code for this size, and I can go, and it sits right there. I don't have to constantly go to a new code editor and do new code in this new spot, and then you're playing that game of, oh, where are the styles coming from? Oh my gosh, what breakpoint are they at, right? No. That's not, that's a dumb game to play. That's not the game we want to play. That's not a winning game. It's not a winning game, okay? All right, so you see this. Now, what we want to do is we want to start looking at the size of the actual container. You know, like this is a good example right here. I think we can all agree, doesn't look great. Like if it just had the short description, it would probably look just fine. But in this situation right here, it does not look great at all. So we want to use container queries. And when you want to use container queries, the very first thing you do is you right click and say add has me, okay? And it's going to add the has me selector. And if you are in a grid, you do need a wrapper, which if you're using a list, you already have a wrapper by default. It's a natural wrapper. But if you're not using a list structure, you do need a wrapper in grids, because what container queries do is they look at the size of the parent container. And I've selected the grid right here, and you can see the size of the parent container is 781, but that's not the size of this cell that this card is in. And we actually care about whatever is confining the element. That's what we care about. What is squeezing the element? The grid is not squeezing the element. The cell of the grid is squeezing the element. But container queries can't measure grid cells. They can only measure real elements. So you need a physical cell. In this case, that's your LI, right? So your semantic HTML is naturally doing the job for you here. And if I select the LI, you can see, that is actually what we want right there. That's what we want to know the value of, 247. So I'm going to go back to my stat card here. I added the has me selector, and see, this is the benefit of I'm going to add the code where I'm viewing it without losing access to all the other code that I wrote, and without losing the context of what's happening in all the other areas of my code, right? So I'm going to right click and I'm going to say add a container query. And we're going to see at container inline size greater or equal to rem 247 pixels. It gave me the value of the element that I'm currently looking at in its current state. And now I'm going to decide, okay, I'm actually going to say less than or equal to, and we are going to take that stat long description right here. So stat card _ long description, and we're going to say display none that. Now I'm already on stat card, right? So I should be able to just stem off of this with the ampersand and say long description. Let me zoom back in again because I keep forgetting. I'm going to ask StreamYard, like, what are you guys doing that we can't have 4K streaming? Like it's 2025. Let's just be honest. That's an era 3 move from StreamYard. That's an era 3 move. We need to get StreamYard into era 4. Okay. Or I'm going to need an alternative. I think that's the bottom line here. That's the bottom line. All right. So let's go ahead and see if we can display none on this. Look at this. Look, I mean, look at this. Look at this. Now, look how it's going to be super dynamic, where only in instances where it really got squished, okay? And now I'm seeing like maybe even like right there. I mean, we might be able to say like, let's just get a good round number, 275. Let's just say 275. So I'm just going to take this 247 and change it to a 275. We're just going to go with no long description. Now watch how this behaves. So long description, long description, long description. Okay, we come in, no long description. We come in. Now you might be thinking, well, Kevin, a media query works exactly the same way. Watch what's about to happen. The minute these cards get more space, it shows back up. Why did they get more? They didn't get more space because I made the media bigger, right? They got more space because the grid's stacked, and they go, oh, we have more space now, right? Let's go back to showing the long description. But then as the media continues to crush, right, the space, I don't think it ever gets down to be low enough. So if it did, then they would go away again. Now, if I put them in a very small container, which we'll show in just a second, let's go ahead and add a container, and I'll just put like I don't know, something stupid like a grid, I don't know, 8 class on it, maybe. Okay. And let's go ahead and grab our list item. Yeah, let's just copy. Let's see if we can copy and paste that. Let's go paste that in. Paste. There it is. Okay. And then we're going to say new stat list. Boom. And then let's put that in that new stat list. Okay, fantastic. List item, and where did I put the class? New stat list, grid 8, new stat list. I'm wondering why it's giving me the, oh, I didn't make this a UL. There we go. Okay. Grid 8, not a great look. Let's go grid 6. Okay, there you go. So this is, again, media query, impossible. Can't do this. Look, it's gone because it doesn't have enough space. Right? The media does not matter. Like I'm on desktop right now. I'm looking at desktop. I did not change this. Okay. I'm just sticking it into a different space. This is what I meant before when I said these kinds of things can become now very, very intelligent and very dynamic. Okay. Now let's look at container, long description, display none. So what I'm going to say is I can just copy this. Let's come down here. By the way, if you ever want more real estate, okay, you can just do this, right? If I'm just looking at this portion of the canvas, I can always drag that up. So like little small things I like to just continue to remind people of. But if I duplicate this container query and say, hey, greater than rim 275, we can change this to just description, right? Just description. And we should be able to, let's see, make sure my names are right. Stat card. Oh, it's called stat description. That's why, stat description. Okay, stat description. Now we have the perfect scenario. So when we have enough for the long description, we only see the long description. When we don't have enough for the long description, we only see the short description. We're good to go now. And now we could componentize it. Now we could loop it. We could do all that great stuff. Let's pause for a minute. Any activity in the chat, Mateo, that we need to know about before I get into maybe doing a little JSON loop example here?
There's a few questions, but I think they can wait. Mostly okay. There were a couple of requested demo stuff that I think you're already planning on addressing, like the components object prop or the SVG element.
Yeah. We're definitely going to get to the object prop. We're definitely going to get to the SVG element. In fact, we'll do the SVG element next, and we're going to do probably another JSON loop example next. Just doing a little logo strip that's very, very common on sites, but showing how the new SVG element works and why it's different from the old one. I think one of the biggest questions people have is, like, I can still paste SVG code in, right? Yes. The answer is yes. You can still just take raw SVG code and paste it into the HTML editor. It will render an SVG just like it has done for a long time now. But we have a new dynamic SVG element, and I will explain the difference and why that exists and what new possibilities it opens up, okay? All right, fantastic. So we've got this situation going on. The question here is, do we want to create a custom post type for these stats? And I explained already, no, we don't. It's too heavy on the architecture, too difficult to manage. It's just not necessary, right? So what is our alternative? Okay, well, I'm going to go over here to the loop manager, and I'm going to grab a new loop, and I'm going to call this new loop. We're going to say that this is stats, okay? And I'm going to say that the source is JSON data. And then I'm going to start here. It basically gives you some sample data, and you just decide on the structure and you edit it to whatever data you need. In this case, we're going to have our stats, which we already see. If I go back here, we already see we need basically three things. We need the stat itself, we need the short description, and we need the long description. There's just three pieces of data that make up these stat cards. And when you do them as JSON, they're all going to be in a nice list. Okay. So I'm going to come down here to stats. All of your stats are going to be listed here, which means that they will be loopable on any given page of the site. They will be editable on any given page of the site. You can add new ones at any time. You can remove some at any time, whatever you want to do here. Okay. And you can add additional data to them at any time. So what I'm going to do is change the ID key to stat. And then we can say something like 99%, which we'll put in quotes. And then here we'll say, I don't know, we need some like fake stats, okay, like 5,000. This will be like happy customers, okay, something like that. This will be the uptime that we already did. All right, and then instead of name, I don't like name. We're gonna obviously do something like short description, okay? And then what we want to do is a comma, and we want to have maybe long description, okay? And then we're going to put our long description in. Now, some of you are like, Kevin, let me zoom in again if I can so everybody can see what we're doing here. Kevin, I've never done JSON before. I don't know what you're doing right now. Or Kevin, I don't enjoy writing JSON. No problem whatsoever. Literally go to any LLM, but you'll be able to do this inside of Etch very soon anyway, so it's not really going to matter. But you go to any LLM and literally go, hey, I want JSON structure for stats. It's going to have the stat, a short description, and a long description, and I want you to put in maybe 10 sample stats for an XYZ type of company, right? Like a web design agency or a coffee shop or a whatever. And it will literally just spit it out at you, and you copy it and you paste it in here, and then you loop through it. And then you just change the data to be your data. It's done. You don't have to write JSON, okay? And by the way, LLM's AI, very, very good at JSON data. They understand the structure. They understand it almost works flawlessly every single time I request it, okay? So let's say this is a long description about the uptime of our servers or something like that. 5,000 happy customers. We've served well over 5,000 customers in the greater Atlanta area. I don't know. Okay. Now let's, I don't even think we need to put in a third stat. I think we get the point. Okay. So we have our data here. What we're going to do is hop back out. Notice we're still here, right? We never had to leave. Okay. All we did was quickly jump to we didn't even really jump to a new area. It's almost just like, okay, let's see a new interface real quick while I do these things. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to still be right where I was. Let's look at another great handy feature. Okay. Let's delete and delete. So we have essentially one item. Whenever you're going to do a loop, that's all you need. You need the one item, the source item for the loop, okay? The thing that is going to repeat over and over again. I will pause here to make sure people understand this. In your mind, a lot of times for beginners, you're thinking, I need to repeat these stat cards. That's not what you need to repeat in this scenario. You created a list structure, an unordered list with list items, and then the stat cards are in the list item. The thing you need to repeat is the list item. Okay, this makes sense if you understand proper semantic HTML, right? It goes li, 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 li. That's what you want, right? So that is the thing that you need to loop. So we're going to right click and we're going to say wrap in loop. There's a lot of these little handy wrap in condition, wrap in loop. I use this stuff all the time. It makes life really, really, really easy. So look what just happened. It wrapped the list item with the article card inside of it, the stat card inside of a loop element. Okay. And now it gives you this new panel over here that we didn't see before. We didn't see it before because we weren't using a loop. Now that we're using a loop, the panel just sits over here. You can, by the way, drag it over here. You can, by the way, drag it down here. You can put it wherever you want. I tend to like it right below the structure panel. So I'm seeing structure, I'm seeing data, structure, data, structure, data. This makes sense to my brain. That's how I do it. You can do it however you want to do it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose the stats, okay? And you see these are static down here, but these are dynamic inside of the loop. You see that we only went down to 2, okay? And I'm seeing right here the keys that I have available to me. And I see over here the actual loop, and it says loop stats as item. The item key is the default key. You can use item if you want to use item. It makes sense because these are items, whatever. But if you did want to customize it, you could change it to something like stat. And the only difference, I'll show you what the difference is going to be in just a second, okay? The only time I would recommend doing that, by the way, is if you're using nested loops. So if you're using a nested loop situation, you don't want both loops to say item. It'll still work, it'll still function, but it's going to be confusing as hell to your brain, okay? It really helps to name the loops or name the key for the item, right? So you could say like loop stats as stat, and then like if there's a nested loop in there, loop something as something else, right? And now you can very clearly see what your dynamic data is going to map to. Okay, so all we need to do here is a simple replacement of the static data that is here. For example, this says 99%. You can do this on the canvas. You can do this in the content attribute over here in the sidebar. There's going to be right click in the not too distant future where you can literally just, or like a little dynamic data icon where you click it and it knows the JSON source or the source of the loop, and it says, hey, which one of these keys would you like to put here? And you just click it and it inserts it for you. Right now, you just type it, okay, which isn't a big deal, all right? So we're going to do item.stat. And the minute I do item.stat, I get the stats. And then what would I do down here, right? I would do content, right? Item dot, and then I believe it was short description. Okay, let's go look at the list again. Short description right here, item dot short description. Okay, let's go back to stat description. Yeah, uptime, short description. Am I in the right one? Yeah, I am. Okay, there it is. Uptime, happy customers. I forgot I had it selected. So you're going to see the key when it's selected. If you unselect it, you select something else, you're going to start seeing the data being rendered. So it's essentially just plugging these keys in. And when we do the object prop in a little while, this is going to be a little bit different. And you're going to see why. And if we do components, you're going to see how this stuff starts to interact with the props of the components. But I can also go to the long description here. And oh, that's why I put the short description on the long description. So there we go. Perfect. Okay. So there we go. We've got these cards working. We can go down. We can see them. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Looking good. And obviously, we're not paying attention to this one anymore down here. We don't need this one. So we're just paying attention to up here. So I didn't have to create CPTs. I didn't have to create custom fields. I didn't have to add a bunch of architecture. All I did was, hey, I've got some data. I would like to loop through the data. I put it in JSON format. I stuck it in there. I selected the format, or I selected the loop right here of the data. And then I plugged in the keys and boom. And I have the ability now to do this on every single page. I also have the ability to come in and I can essentially pass, for example, the quantity that I want as an argument, okay? So I can say, in this particular loop, I only want 3. In this particular loop, I want to show 9 stats, right? So you can still manage this the way that you have always been able to do that. Let me do a flex 1 on this, flex 1. And let me do, actually, this is inside, so we can just do a block size of 100%, okay? Make those fill the entire container. Okay, let's pause there. I'm gonna mark off full-time responsive mode, dynamic container queries, and media queries. The RIM function, we covered that. Let's get something very easy out of the way, global style sheets. Much, much, much requested, obviously very important. What I'm gonna do is go to the style manager. You're gonna see in the style manager, we now have, we had selectors for a long time. We had variables for a long time. What we didn't have right here was style sheets. And they work essentially the same way as variables do. So when I click on it, you're going to have a left column where you can add what we call collections, okay, which are just custom style sheets, right? Where we can have main styles. And let's say I wanted, let's say I'm not using automatic CSS and I want to create some like card stuff, okay? So I could say cards and hit OK. Now I have a cards style sheet. Let's say I'm going to do one for a custom checkout page, right? So I can say checkout page, put that in, checkout page. All my checkout page styles can be here. All my card styles can be here. All my main styles can be here. These are global style sheets. Now, again, these would be things that need global CSS, because what you want to do whenever possible is element level CSS. The way that I did with everything that I've done so far, where I click on an element, I write the CSS, it attaches the CSS to the element. That's what you want to do most of the time. This is for global styles. Things you cannot do at the element level get done here. And these will soon be exportable. Like, let's say you make some cards and they rely on some global CSS for whatever reason. Maybe it's animation type stuff, right, that you can't nest. Maybe it's container style queries, which can't be nested. Those things have to be global, but they belong to the cards that you've created, and you're going to share these cards with people using our new import export feature, right, where you just copy the JSON and you go paste it into another site. Well, guess what? The global would not come with it. But if you have the global styles compartmentalized in a separate style sheet, you're going to be able to export that card style sheet and say, by the way, import this card style sheet with those components, and boom, that styling is now going to import into whatever project you're sharing it into. So this is going to take care of all the global styles that you're going to need to manage, which again, by the way, like let's remind everybody, you might come here and say H1 color red, okay? Do you have to do that? Thinking that's a global style. Do you have to do that? No, you actually don't have to do that, okay? You don't have to do that. Let me remind everybody that Etch has a full selector system, okay? So if I have like an H1 in here, right? Let's change this to H1. Just gonna throw one onto the canvas, right? I can add a selector for H1s right here, okay? And I can do whatever I want. Alt to generic H1s. That's not a class. That's not an ID. That's element level styling in Etch. Okay, you go to the style manager. You're going to see here's all the classes. Here's an element selector sitting right there. You can even sort and say, hey, I want class selectors. Look, it's not there because it's not a class selector. Look, there's nothing there because there's no IDs, right? There's no attribute selectors. Tag selector. I did select the H1 tag and there's the styles. This does not have to be stuck into a global style sheet, okay? And the benefit here of using the selector system is that when I am, let's save and refresh here real quick. When I am looking at the canvas, okay, I can see where styles are coming from. Do you see this? You can see it. If this was in a global style sheet, this little pill right here would not be there. That would not be there. I would have to be like, where's that style coming from? Maybe go check global style sheets, maybe go inspect it on the front end. I don't have to do that if I use the selector system because I get the pill and the pill shows me, I see where these styles are coming from. And then you can edit them right here on the element. Element level CSS is always the best approach to CSS in the modern era. Global style sheets should use sparingly, only when absolutely critically necessary for something you cannot do at the element level. I don't think that can be explained enough, okay? All right, let's mark that off. We have major improvements to component editing user experience or development experience. We can save without reloading. We can save without losing focus. Let me show you what this looks like, and this is gonna help us on our march towards the new object prop and things like that. So I'm going to take this article card and I'm going to turn it into a component. I'm going to right click. Let me zoom in here for everybody. Just like I had all these little helpers over here, I've got this create component. There's going to be a keyboard shortcuts for a lot of this stuff as well. So you're going to, if you're a keyboard shortcut kind of person, you're going to be able to fly through these workflows. I'm going to click on this. It is instantly turned into a component. It brings me into the component editor, right? Now I've got the dynamic data and all of that situation that I'm going to sort out. But now I can decide what props I need, or maybe I want to do the object prop or what have you. Here's the thing. Before, like if I wanted to do something, let me just throw some static data in here. Okay. Let me go 99%. Let me go, this is a short description. Let me go, this is a long description. Okay. Boom. Just like that. All right, so I'm seeing my data again. Let's say I wanted to make a change to this. I'm gonna, I don't know, let's make it red or something, just something stupid, right? And now I want to save and I want to maybe go check the front end, okay, as an example. When I saved previously, like before September, remember, this is not like this week, this is like before September. When I say previously, two things would happen. One, the page would reload, okay? And two, the selection of the element would go back to the parent, like the actual component itself. And it was really annoying. It was annoying. It was annoying to me. It was annoying to it was obvious, right? It was like, that's not, like, that shouldn't happen. We got to improve that, okay? So as you just saw, I just saved it, right? What happened? Nothing. It did not refresh the interface, and it did not lose focus on the element that I'm working on. This means that in the component editor, you can make these changes. Let's make it back to white, save, and go check the front end, and you can now move like very, very, very quickly, right? I didn't lose my place. I did not lose my place of where I was working. It's a small thing, but it's an insanely helpful thing. And that just kind of speaks to, like, we are identifying these various challenges. If it's an obvious like headache, it's going to get fixed, okay? It's going to get fixed. Let's look at new data modifiers before we do anything else here. I'm just gonna hop over to the documentation for this. So Etch documentation, very helpful. It's getting very robust. Like for example, if you click on dynamic data modifiers, we're gonna see this new list here. And you're gonna see, you know, how extensive the documentation is getting. It's getting very, very, very helpful. Thanks to our team. I write a lot of it. Thanks to a couple of users, right, who are helping, Zach in particular, putting a lot of work into helping with the documentation. Anybody can contribute to the documentation through our GitHub. We review it and then we will publish it. And that just, it really helps speed things up, right? Because we can't be full-time just writing documentation. Some of our users are helping us. That's why this documentation is getting so good. But a lot of these are self-explanatory. I don't think we have to look at every single example of them, but you can format dates, you can format numbers, you can send something to uppercase or to lowercase, you can format something to a string, to an integer, to a slug, to a Boolean, you can trim white space, you can trim white space on the left, white space on the right, or the start or the end, or what have you. You can round numbers, you can go to the ceiling, you can go to the floor, you can do an includes. All of this stuff is explained over here. Some of this stuff is a bit more advanced. This is what you would expect from an interface like Etch, being able to manipulate data dynamically on the fly. You can join and you can do a new apply data. There's a lot of examples down here of this stuff. I would just go review it. These are not things, just to be clear here, not things that you're probably going to need every single project, every single time, every single day. So what I would encourage you to do is you go read through it and then you store that in your brain that these things are a possibility. And it's not that you're like memorizing how to do them. It's just you need to know they're possible. Because when you run into a scenario where one of these things needs to happen, you're going to go, oh, I remember this is possible. Let me pull up the documentation, go find the one that you need, read how to use it, and then use it. Okay, that's kind of how these things work. A lot of like beginners might look at this list and go, what is going on here? Like, I have no idea. Well, what am I going to ever do with these things, right? You don't need to know. You don't need to know. You don't need to care until you need to know and until you need to care. That's how these work, okay? You're going to run into situations where you're like, oh, I need to be able to do X, Y, Z, and you just need to know that that's possible. Come to the documentation, find these things, and then you can make it happen. All right, let me mark that off the list. That is the new list of dynamic data modifiers. Okay, let's look at the new SVG element. And I'm trying to be cognizant of time too. What are we at? 12 o'clock? Okay, pretty good, pretty good. I think we're gonna have plenty of time. We're gonna get to Q&A as well. All right, I'm gonna insert I won't do the whole logo list thing with JSON and all that. I don't think we need to. Let's just throw a new container in here. And I'm going to exit the component editor real quick. And I'm going to add a container. And I'm just going to drop a logo down here. So let's go zoom in. OK, this is the SVG. I don't want you to get confused because this looks exactly like it used to look. Nothing has changed right here. Nothing has changed right here. The difference is what happens when you click that button. There's a huge difference when you click this button. OK, so I'm going to zoom out again. I'm going to click that button. And you're going to see, well, hey, Kevin, that looks very similar. That looks kind of like it did, right? But look down here. So what you used to see is raw SVG code. It would be SVG and the paths. And then in here, in the structure panel, all the paths were children elements, and they were all selectable and all of that. And you see none of that is happening anymore. This is like an encapsulated element, okay? All of that is going to get output the exact same on the front end, but you don't have access to it here. And you might think to yourself, well, Kevin, not having access to those things seems like a limitation. And actually, it's not. It's not a limitation. I mean, in some ways, it could be, but in other ways, it actually makes this a lot more flexible, okay? And the most important thing to understand is if you want the old school approach, hey, Kevin, I want to see the SVG. I want to see all my paths. I want those things to be selectable. I want to manipulate my SVG inside of Etch. You can still do that. Just copy the SVG code and paste it in, and there's just no element for it because it's not an element. It's a group of elements, really, at the end of the day, and Etch still parses them. So all you have to do is paste raw HTML in, and you're going to get the old school approach. This is the new school approach because this approach applies to most common scenarios when using SVGs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I can select, like, look, I don't need code anymore. I can just select any SVG from right here. Let's just use this media and we're going to get an SVG. Now I can click this and say like strip color attributes. This is a multicolor SVG, which is a little bit more advanced, right? But I can say, for example, strip color attributes, it's going to make it a single color SVG file if I want to do that. I can still put selectors on here, okay? My SVG, and I can add styles, right? Okay, color red. Hey, now it's a red SVG. Look at that, right? So super easy. Customizing this stuff, if you need the basics, is still very simple. But what this does is it gives a lot of new flexibility. Number one, it's just an encapsulated thing where you don't have to see a bunch of children elements in the structure panel all the time. And when you clicked on an SVG, it might actually click on a path and select the path instead of the actual SVG. So if you don't need all that complexity and that structure, this is just very, like, much more user-friendly and faster to work with. But more importantly, it opens the door for SVG props in components, dynamically inserted SVGs. You can literally go to an SVG library, okay? And if they give you a URL to the SVG, you can take that URL, you can come over here and you can literally paste it in, okay? Where did my builder go? You could paste in that URL as the source and it will render that SVG. You couldn't do that before, right? You had to bring in the code for it. Now you could just reference a URL for a source and it will parse it on the fly for you. And so what this does, let's say I was going to put a logo in our stat cards, okay? So let's delete all that. Let's edit our stat card component and let's drop in an SVG, okay? Drop in an SVG. And we're just going to call this logo, right? Okay, so that's right there. And I can now take, instead of, see what we were brainstorming and what people thought we were going to have to do is you were going to have to add a new prop and call it SVG. Like there would be an SVG prop here. And then that would give you the ability to dynamically select SVGs. Well, now all you have to do is add a media prop, which could be an image, it could be an SVG, it could be whatever, it doesn't really matter, okay? Call that logo all the same, okay? Maybe select one of these as the default logo, okay? So now I have a default, and I'm just gonna say props.logo is gonna be my source. I think I have to use tags here. There you go. Props.logo. And so just using the media prop that already existed, I now have support for SVGs. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strip color attributes. I'm going to save. I'm going to go ahead and exit. And now on a per stat card basis, well, these are in a loop. So I would need, in the JSON data, I would need a line for the logos. Okay. Let's duplicate this. Let's pull it out so it's statically here somewhere. Look, I can just go in and say, that one, okay? Or this one, right? You could never do this before. You couldn't, there was no way to prop SVGs, right? You could only do this with images before. Now you can do this with SVG files. So this is fantastic. And then if your loop source has data for SVGs in it, you can pull those dynamically. You would just put the item.whatever inside of that and it will render. So this is fantastic. I will show you on the front end, right? What is the actual output of this? There you go, right there. That's what used to be sitting in the structure panel over here, is all these paths and all this stuff going on, right? Much cleaner with an encapsulated SVG. A question people always have in this scenario: does it cost me a wrapper? Does it add a wrapper in order to render this properly? Absolutely not. Never, right? You never see any wrappers, only what you asked for. There's a section, there's an article, there's an SVG, there's a P, there's a P, there's a P. Over here, when I was making lists of them, right? There's a UL with an LI and an article, and inside is an SVG. So there's no extra wrappers. There's no cost to doing this. It's still clean semantic HTML. All right, let's mark that off the list. Let's take a look at, we're going to do object.
A quick question on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you strip the color, does it do it on just that SVG, not all SVGs?
If you do it in a component, it's going to strip it on all SVGs. Okay. You're saying, hey, this is how I want this component to look. All the
instances of that component.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that's usually because you're coloring them somehow, some way. If you're wanting the SVGs to render exactly as is, you just don't hit strip colors. Just don't hit strip colors, and it will just render the SVGs as they are. It won't manipulate them. Okay. That's why, yeah, strip colors is an option, right? And it's most helpful if you're going to be doing, think like icons. Icons are very typically single color, okay? And you would almost always want to strip colors, because when you bring in, depending on the icon library or where you source the SVGs from, they almost always come in with hard-coded hex colors, which means you cannot color them with CSS. They ignore the CSS. It's like inline styles. If you hit strip colors, now you have CSS available to you. You can make them any color you want. So if it's a single color SVG, I would always strip colors. If you're working with multicolor SVGs, you're going to want to take a different approach. You're not going to want to strip colors, okay? And at that point, you're probably going to have to manually edit your SVG files and change all of those things to some sort of tokenized system where you can identify color 1, color 2, or whatever. But still, just sourcing a multicolor SVG, like if you want to be able to manipulate those colors, you have to edit the SVG. It's just, there's no way, that's how SVGs work in web design. This is not an Etch thing or an interface thing. This is literally just the pain in the ass of SVGs.
Reinhard highlights that you can also have a Boolean prop to control whether or not you strip the color from the component. So you can do it on an instance level.
That's a good point. Let me go to SVG. Yeah. Because of this attribute right here, I'll zoom in again because of the resolution. So when you click that button over there, when I say strip color attributes, it looked like there was magic going on behind the scenes. That magic is controlled by this attribute right here, strip colors equals true, which we can see is a Boolean value, right? So if I came in and I made a prop, right, Boolean, and I say strip colors, boom, and I map that right into this value right here, there's your control point, okay, for whether you're stripping colors or not. So that was a good point to bring up. Thank you, Reinhard. Let's exit this. Okay. Anything else on that, Mateo, before I go on? We're down to the last two things.
There's a question about doing fill and border colors to create duotone images.
Fill and border color for SVGs, right? Yeah. You're gonna, in those situations where you have an advanced SVG, you're going to want to paste the SVG code and you're going to want to manipulate the SVG code. That's what there's just no way, there's no way around that.
Like the old school approach. Yeah.
The interfaces can't magically, identify your colors and name them for you and then give you it's just, maybe at some point, but we haven't even thought about that yet. We haven't even looked at that yet. And no interface in existence that I know of does it. So, it's just that's the web design life you signed up for, is manually manipulating SVG files. Okay, let's go to CSS inputs phase 2. If you're a beginner, if you identify as a beginner, let's say that. If you identify as a beginner, or you identify as a click, slider kind of developer, from maybe other page builders like Element or Beaver or whatever, raise your hand or say that's me or whatever. Just because what I'm about to show you next is, you're gonna like this. That part of the target market is very, very interested in this sort of thing, because so far you've seen me write CSS. I'm writing all the CSS, and people who are in that camp, most of them tell me, Kevin, I want to be able to write CSS. That's what I'm working towards. But a style panel is very helpful right now. Okay, so I'm going to open up the style panel. And I'm going to show you some stuff that we have been working on. So whenever you have an element selected with a selector, you're going to see the style panel. If you have the style panel turned on, I'll come down here. It says style inputs. You just toggle this right here. Okay. Then you're going to see the style panel and you're going to start to see some changes here, right? Like, this is different. This is different. If I shift click this, I'm going to be able to do each side independently. All of this is very, very alpha right now. Very, very rough still. Like it's just all work in progress because we don't wait till things are fully polished to release them. We just give them to you so you can get the value from them. And then we polish them as we go. So for those who aren't familiar with our process, that's how it works. That's why when I go into the loop manager, like I did a minute ago, you might see stuff like this. This doesn't look very polished, right? That's because polish isn't the point right now. Functionality is the point, and then we polish as we go. There's going to be a lot of parts of the interface that do look very polished, right? Every part of the interface is going to get to that. But we go functionality first. But here, for example, we have like changing the display from flex to grid. Hey, do you have to write this? No, you don't have to write it. If I change to flex, look, I get all of my controls here. This is going to be auto syncing. Look at that. I didn't write what's this, the code down here. What happened here? You didn't see me change that. It changes on the fly. It's changing itself. It's bidirectionally synced. I can, by the way, get access to less commonly used options right here. Okay. And then so go to flex, like this is very user-friendly type stuff. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this, right? And you're just clicking buttons. This is the click, click, click approach, the slider, slider, slider approach, right? And then watch what happens on the canvas and like, oh, I clicked the wrong button. Oh shit, let's do that. Let's do that. I don't know what I'm doing, right? And you're just clicking buttons. But this gives you that control of being able to do this stuff without having to, and obviously, like I said, there's some bugs there. So I would, continue to use this, continue to let us know how it's working for you, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. I don't personally use these panels, right? I do test them, like I do play with them and just kind of make sure that they're coming together as they should be. But I'm not a heavy user of these input panels. So we really rely on, I don't think many people on our team are. So we rely on user feedback heavily here. We want you to start using these new controls, find the bugs, report the bugs, find any workflow issues or UX issues and report those so that we can clean them up and fix them. But let me show you a couple other things. So I'm going to click on this section. We'll say my section, and I'm going to go over to backgrounds. Okay. We have this new background layer system. Of course, I can put red in here if I wanted to do a background color of red. But I'm going to click new layer right here. And this probably takes a little bit of explanation. And this is for sure. I know this section is a bit buggy and it's a work in progress, right? This is what we got to that we released. And then next week it's going to be improved. And the week after that, it's going to be improved even more. It's in constant progress, right? But background layers are essentially going to use the background shorthand property. And if you don't know, background shorthand property can be comma separated into essentially an unlimited number of layers, right? I don't know if they call them layers in CSS officially, but that's how I think of them, right? Let me see if I can get, I don't know why it's my section, but let's refresh and just see why there we go. Okay, I don't know. It was confused for a second there. So we have this new tool where you can come in and I'm just doing, layer 1. You can add another layer, layer 2. I will say that layers in the background property are counterintuitive. So this will take a little bit of maybe watching and understanding and practice. It's unintuitive for me. It's not because our approach is unintuitive. It's because CSS, unfortunately, is unintuitive with the background property. And it's unintuitive in the sense that it runs counter to every other rule you're used to in CSS regarding the cascade, okay? So this is very visual. I'm going to put in, let's say I was going to do an image, okay? So we'll do an image. I don't even know if I have, let me go get an image real quick. Let's say I'm going to do an image and I want an overlay, like a dark overlay on the image, okay? A lot of people would put the image in first, which I'm going to do, okay? Let's just do that. All right, let's go up to here and let's see if we can drag that in. And of course it opens it. I don't like Dia's media management system here. Okay, So I've put the image in, and now, by the way, I can choose the position where we can, just come down here and choose keywords essentially, right? My size can be cover. I don't want to repeat this. I'm going to say no repeat. None of that really matters. That the default is just fine. I can choose the image size that I actually want. Okay, these are the registered image sizes in WordPress. It's going to use, it's just going to pull from those dynamically, whatever you choose. Okay, it won't have source set because this is literally CSS, is not a real image. But you see that I put an image in here. By the way, you can actually use this control point to choose what part of the image you are seeing. And this is all just to give you a taste of, yes, remember, we promised we would wrap back around and make these style panels way easier and way more friendly and do way more stuff, okay? So you can do all the stuff you like. The goal is, even though you should be writing CSS, you should know how to write CSS, or you should understand CSS. You shouldn't have to if you don't want to. If you're that kind of user, like that was the promise that we made you. Well, this is you're seeing now, this is phase 2, right? We're coming back around and making these kinds of improvements to the interface. Okay, so that was the explanation of layer 1. You might think now, and look what it did down here. Okay, it essentially just put the URL in the background property and it put the other background properties in here that I chose. You would think now it's time to add our overlay, which means, hey, let's add a new layer. And there's a little bug where layer 1 opens again that we'll fix. But here's layer 2. So now I can do something new on layer 2. Well, here's what you need to understand too about color layers in the background property. This is, again, CSS, like the people who make CSS, right? I don't think they did the best job here, but whatever. But if you want, like, for example, a transparent color layer, you're going to need to use a linear gradient, okay? And this is very manual right now, and this section is, like I just mentioned again, it is very buggy. Linear, I don't even know if I can, I think there's like a keyboard shortcut that's like interacting with this. I ran into this the other day when I was testing it. All right, linear gradient. It's also working on parsing, I think commas maybe, and these brackets right here for sure. There's like some rules that we had put in for other types of values or autocomplete or whatever. I think they're interacting with this. But again, work in progress, right? Red, okay? And so I would need these 2 colors in here to be some sort of transparency, right? Which you can put color mix functions in, right? sRGB. It kind of ignore what I'm doing right now because it doesn't look very user-friendly, right? But I'm going to do red and transparent, okay? This is how you're going to get transparencies. This is the modern way to get transparencies is color mix. And the color mix can be put into linear gradients and whatnot. But let's take a look at what's going on down here. So it added a comma, and then it added that linear gradient. And the cascade of CSS, everybody knows what, right? Cascading style sheets, okay? Cascade means that things that come last take precedence, okay? Background property in CSS is the exact opposite. I don't know why I don't like it, okay? If you don't like it, I don't like it either. But this just, I didn't write CSS. I didn't make it. I didn't make the language, okay? Essentially, this becomes a visual, what's visually on top, right? What comes first, okay? So top to bottom, the thing on top is literally going to be on top. So you actually need layer 2 to be on top, to come first before layer 1. What we're going to be adding next, along with these other improvements, is the ability to drag and drop these layers. You can't drag and drop them right now. But when you do, you're just going to be able to drag this up, and then you would see the overlay. You're not seeing the overlay because what is on top? The image is on top. The thing that's listed first is going to be on top. So the image is on top of the overlay. That's why you don't see it. Okay, you got to know that it's backwards. We're going to have some tips in here for this. We're obviously going to have videos and trainings and all of that. This is the best approach to managing backgrounds, okay? It just has a little bit of a learning curve because it's not intuitive, because this part of CSS is not intuitive. And we will do everything that we possibly can to make it as easy as possible for you. But, it is what it is. We're working towards that goal. And there's going to be a lot of testing going forwards. But this is the approach that we're going to be taking to managing background layers, which is going to give you out of the box overlays, multi-layered backgrounds, right? You can have literally 7 different maybe background objects, like maybe you want things floating, right? and you can make them all their own layers, and you can control the size and position of every layer independently, okay? I think I've showed this by hand in tutorials in the past. You're going to be able to do that with a visual interface, with this style panel. But there's a lot of stuff that we have to account for and work our way towards. The main part of showing you this is letting you know that we're fulfilling the promise, where we said, hey, we are going to come back to these style panels, and we're going to make them way more robust and way more user-friendly, and you're going to be able to do everything you need to do from them. This is just us keeping our promise, right? Making that kind of stuff happen. Okay, let's do, any questions on that came through, Mateo?
No.
Okay. All right, let's do the object prop. Let's do the object prop. I think the best way to explain this probably is just with a simple like post loop. So I'm just going to go to the content hub real quick. We're going to say like post 1, and then I'll say post 2, and we're going to create that. And then I'm going to do post 3. So I'm just creating some blog posts here. Let's go ahead and hit save. Okay, good. So I've got some sample posts in there. What I'm going to do is add a section. I'm going to get rid of my styling panel because I don't want that anymore. And I'm going to create a list of blog post cards. All right. So we're going to say post list. And then inside of that, I'm going to do my flex div, and I'm going to say post card. And then this is going to be an article. And then you saw before, right? I said I do this all the time, wrap in loop. I'm sorry, not wrap in loop. Let's take that out. I wanted to wrap in list. Wrap in list. Okay. Or convert to list. Good. I will wrap it in a loop in just a second, but I want the static thing done first. Okay, if I put post list on here, I'll get that bullet to go away. And then this is going to be post card. I'm going to guess we're just going to make this super easy with like a content wrapper and a media wrapper. Throw some media in there. Media wrapper, throw some media in. Boom, bang, boom. Media, let's change that to a figure, okay? And in our content, we're just going to have maybe heading, and then like a fake button. We're not even going to make this a real button. It'll just say read more, okay? And then in our heading, we're probably going to do a link inside of our heading. So let's add an anchor inside of the heading. Now, what'll happen when you do this, because you can add a link, proper structure is the link goes inside the heading. I've seen a lot of people, I think even Oxygen to this day wraps headings in links, which is semantically incorrect. The heading does go inside the link. But you have to understand that the text that was already here is going to stay there, right? And then the link is going to have its separate text. So people will see this and be like, what do I do, right? It's very simple. Like just come take the default text that was here and remove it, right? And now you just have the link inside of the H2. And now you have text that you can manage however you want to manage it, right? Now, this is not going to, or actually, yeah, this is the title. So this is the title. Okay, this is the fake link down here. This is what we're gonna maybe make look like a button or something like that, but we're not actually gonna link it up. And I'm probably not even gonna worry about the styling at all anyway, because it's not the point. Okay, so I'm gonna take this postcard here. Let's see, content. We'll call this title. I've got my link. Okay, I've got my read more. I've got my media wrapper. I've got my media. I'm gonna right click, create BEM classes. Fantastic. Take this list item, wrap in loop. And we're going to choose our recent posts. Okay, so I've got posts, which is going to pull the latest 10, and you can see them all right there. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to style the card up a little bit. Okay, so let's go padding of card padding. Let's go border of border. Let's go border radius of radius. Let's go. It's probably good. We don't need to do too much. Let's take the media wrapper itself and order -1.
Did you mute yourself?
No, I'm still here. Hello. You don't hear me anymore?
I can't hear you.
Did the stream? No, I should still be here. I didn't change anything.
Am I the only one? Is this a me problem, chat?
Let's look in the chat. Let's look in the chat.
Oh, that's odd.
There it is. We can hear Kevin. Mateo can't. Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't change anything. So I think it's on your end, Mateo.
If it's a problem on my side.
Okay.
Maybe it's on my side. It's on my side.
Maybe your batteries ran out. Okay. let's go. Let's keep working. Let's keep working. All right. So let's go to the post list and let's go display of grid. Let's go right click and add media query. By the way, you don't have to use the controls to add a media query, right? If you just know like, hey, greater or equal to, and I pretty much know like 800 pixels, I want this to go grid template columns. You can just do it that way. Okay, there's my 3 cards. Let's go ahead and pull in just static, bang, static media. There we go. Okay, so it's going to be something like this. Now, I'm going to try my best to explain this. I would highly encourage you once again. Let me go over here. Let me go to components. Let me go to component props. Let's go to the object.
Sorry,
prop.
I'll try to join again because I still can't hear you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. There is documentation on this. Like the first thing you should always do is go read the documentation. It starts out with why the object prop exists. Very good thing to read before you start using the object prop, okay? All right, so there's a lot of philosophy that goes into some of this stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create a component out of my postcard. Now, what you would normally do, you've seen me do this in past videos, prop, start creating props. What do we need a prop for? Okay, the heading text or the title, right? The link, the this text, this read more text, whatever. We're gonna make this down here. I might have to let him in. Let's see. Oh, no, good. It lets him in. Oh, perfect. I like that at least, StreamYard. Okay. We would have to make one for the image alt probably. We would have to do like, you make a lot of props, and then the props give you the ability to, on a per instance basis, customize these things. However, if you think about this scenario that we're doing right here, and this is why I like using this scenario, you would not, who's going to use a random blog post card one-off and statically insert content in it? Like, it's just not really a scenario that's common that you would care to do. What I want to be able to do, and I want to be able to take these cards, like let's say I can give you this card and you can go take it and use it on your site and you use it in a loop. Well, how does the card know what loop you put it in, right? Or where the data is even coming from? And does it know that you're going to use the item key or the post key or the this key or the that key? It doesn't know any of those things, right? So we want to create cards, just like we do in CSS with styling, that are like unbreakable from a data perspective, where I can just plug it in, tell it the data source, and it just works. And I don't even need props. I don't need to worry about being able to control this on a per instance basis, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a single prop, which is the object prop, okay? And I can say this is going to be like, I can say data, I could say post, I could do whatever, okay? I think semantically, maybe post makes the most sense, okay? And then what I'm going to do is this would normally be, okay? And again, I would encourage you to go back to the documentation. Let's scroll down and it'll show you, right? Using the object prop. So we create an object prop named post. Our card is going to have a featured image, heading, and a link. So the heading becomes this. What would have been if you weren't using the object prop? Something like item.title, right? Item.title. If you name your object prop post, it will now be props, because it's a prop, dot post, because you named it post, then the normal key that the data is mapped to in the loop that this component is designed for, right? So we want to get the title from the loop, but we're going to get it via props.post, this object, okay? So I'm going to come back in. Here's the post. I called it post, right? This is the title. So I'm going to say props.post.title. Now there's no data source yet, and it tells you this in here, previewing data. Since the dynamic data now relies on an external object that you're not currently referencing, the dynamic data keys will fail to resolve anything while you're building the component. However, there is a solution for this, right? You grab some sample JSON, like that's what this is for, okay? So this is simply for the purposes of I'm developing this component that needs to work in a external data source situation, right? I am going to come in here just so I can see what I'm doing while I'm building stuff, and I can dynamically control, and I can see that it's working, okay? So there's the post title. And then the featured image is going to be a URL to a sample image, whatever. But I'm going to go into the image right here, featured media, okay? And what's this going to be? props.post.featured image. Okay, now I'm not going to bother putting in sample data. I just want to get out of here and get to an actual data source, right? So I'm going to come in and I now see, here's my component, and I see this input over here. Okay, let me zoom in again because the resolution is low. And look what this is doing. Okay, if it stops zooming me out, it's identifying that it is in a loop, and it's identifying the key that is used by this loop recent post as item. Okay, so it's saying, hey, I see I'm in a loop. I see you made an object prop. I see that this component relies on an external data source. Do you want it to use that data source? And you say, yeah, I want it to use that data source. And look what it's doing. It's now using that data source. No props that have to be mapped independently. You're just literally taking an external data source and passing it straight into the component and using it wherever it needs to be used, right? That is insanely flexible, very, very powerful, extremely efficient in these scenarios where this exact kind of thing needs to happen, okay? I don't think these posts have any featured images, which is probably why there's nothing there. Let me go add one to a post here. Let's go to posts. Let's go to post 1. I think was the one that was there. Yeah, these don't have any featured images. So let's put that in. Let's go ahead and hit save, okay? And let's go back and view this on the front end. So post 1 now has a featured image. You're seeing the featured image. And I didn't have to go to a prop over here for the featured image and put in a key to say, hey, this is where the featured image data is going to come from. Okay, this is where the featured image alt is going to come from. Okay, this is where no, you don't need all those props. You just need to know the data source, right? And you don't even need to know the data source. You just have a way to pass in the data source. Hopefully, that makes sense, okay? I'm going to do extensive videos on, let's do it in this scenario, in this scenario, in this scenario, and show you different use cases, because this actually works with JSON, raw JSON data, okay? If we go back into the loop manager, this doesn't have to be stuff from the database. It could be a situation like this. It could be any number of different situations. We do third-party API stuff. That's going to come in handy there. Anything that's an array or an object or that's looped, right? That's a candidate for the object prop. And you can get the benefits of the object prop using the object prop. Is Matteo back now? That's the question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
okay, good. And you can hear me. Okay, excellent. Yep. Let's move on because we're running out of time. You're going to have to, really like judge the questions here. Are there any really good questions?
Yeah, there's a few. First one, I already ranked them in priority. First one, how far is Etch V1? You were mentioning something for September.
Yeah, that's easy to answer. Yeah. Go to etchwp.com/blog.
Yeah, there's an article there that explains everything.
Read
essentially
this article.
on October 1st, we're going to release 1.0.0 Alpha 1 that will begin the alpha process. We'll do a feature freeze, and we will just work on either critical bugs and security fixes, or any kind of adjustments that need to be done to make the product more stable.
Yeah.
The objective is to get this to be stable for production, stable for websites, not just of low or no consequence, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It's the start of a process, so don't expect this to be stable immediately, but that's what we're working for. Then another question was if we have an update on PHP authoring and an approximate timeline.
That's coming after 1.0 stable. There's some security stuff that has to be involved there. We're going to be getting a third-party security audit at that stage of the game. So it's more involved than people think it is. And so we just decided, okay, let's do 1.0 stable. There is a pathway to doing PHP related stuff right now, which means it's not mission critical, but obviously a unified development environment, you have to be able to author PHP. And encapsulated like element level PHP is going to be really, really valuable. So it's coming. It's just it's a post 1.0 thing.
Yeah, exactly. Then when will we have conflict logic be added into Etch so no two users can be editing the same page, template, etc. in Etch.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that at some point in the future. It's if you just think about prioritization, a single developer needs to be able to do all the things they need to do before two developers need to do all the things they need to do at the same time, right? So we're still on the train of let's get single developers to be able to do all the things that they need to be able to do. And then we'll come visit the scenario where 10 different people can work on the site at the same time without breaking it, which, by the way, most builders don't handle very well. So we're also going to be taking a look at the potential, can't make any promises, the potential of multi-screen editing as well. I think would be very, very interesting and valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. Will Etch have a global section for JavaScript as well?
Yes. Yeah, just not yet. It's not really all that necessary. It's just kind of a, it should, but like it's not mission critical really. Because again, you also keep in mind like portability and building an ecosystem where people can freely share stuff, patterns and components and all of this, that is not possible if everything doesn't live. And this is just the concept of like components and patterns. The thing that is the thing, and in BEM, it's called a block, right? Everything that's involved in making that thing render and function and work should live with the thing. That way you can just move it anywhere at any time. You can share it with anybody. And like that is insanely valuable. This is my biggest knock on Gutenberg, for example. You can't write custom CSS at all. If anything requires custom CSS, the pattern library is dead, the shareability is dead, the exportability is dead. All of that stuff dies because they don't have a pathway for getting that stuff to live at the element level. I always said the raw native Gutenberg pattern library is dead in the water until they have that ability. You can't use classes in Gutenberg. That's already dumb. But I've had to, they don't give you the controls you need. So now the other option is we have to create a custom block, but now we're in React land and we're in VS Code and nobody wants to live that life. Of course, in Etch, you can just do all of this in the interface that you're looking at now, very fast, very easy, and then it just exists in Gutenberg automatically. Like we killed the entire concept of a custom block, and we solved the portability problems. We solved all the problems. Okay, that's it. We can just move on. Next question.
All right, next question. Are there going to be accessibility auditing taking place for the product for V1 stable?
There's nothing that requires accessibility yet. When we have components, like native components, like a navigation, an accordion, right now we have pasteable components in. So once again, I will point you to docs.etchwp.com. Go to something like elements, go to dynamic elements, go to basic nav, come down here, copy the navigation component. That's just JSON gets copied to my clipboard. I go paste that in. It's going to paste in a working, functional, accessible navigation. That one hasn't been audited yet, but these are the things that need accessibility auditing, right? A section element, a div, a link, a this, that, there's no accessibility requirements except for the ones that you need to add. If I add, somebody actually just asked this the other day, so I'll just use it as a quick example. They wanted to add an SVG and they wanted to link that SVG. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say wrap in div, and then I'm going to change that div to an A. Now I just wrapped the SVG in a link, but this is where your knowledge, your experience as a developer come in and you go, I can't do that without adding an ARIA label. So you come in here and say ARIA label and say link to Etch or something like that. And now look at that, ARIA link to Etch. And now screen readers are going to read that out because there's no text in there. You just put an SVG inside a link. Screen readers have no idea what that is. They have no idea what that is. So you have to add an ARIA label, or your other option can take that out. You can, with that, see, this is everything is a box. Remember that from Page Building 101, everything's a box. I can put more things in this box. I can put text in that box and I could say link to Etch, right? Or just, this actually be link text, and then I'll write it down here. link to Etch, right? Now screen readers can say that, but you might be like, Kevin, but I don't want the text to be there, okay? What is it, hidden accessible or something? There you go. So automatic CSS will hide that for you with the utility class called hidden accessible. Now you don't need the ARIA label because that text actually does exist in the DOM. Let's go to the front end, right click, inspect, okay? That text will be read out. It's right there. It will be read out as the text of this link, even though we can't see it. So one of those two things has to happen, but that's not an us thing. That's the person using the tool has to know what they're doing thing. And this is why I say, like, people do this in Elementor and Beaver, and that all the time wrong, completely wrong. They break these. Those tools don't do it for you, right? You have to know what you're doing. And that's why I always said, like, the more they dumb down the tool, the more stuff's going to break, because there's no way around. Just, you have to know what you're doing in this industry. You can't just drag and drop and click and slide. You can't do it, right? You're going to break shit. Okay, yeah, next question.
Low clarification from the original question.
Yeah.
He meant about the accessibility of the builder itself.
It's not something we're interested in right now. It would take an insane amount of time and attention away from 99% of the user base, right? So now it depends on what accessibility you're talking about. Are you talking about, Kevin, I want to be able to build an entire site in Etch with just my keyboard? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking. Like, the colors are already accessible. The contrast ratios, all of that has already been checked. That's already accessible. It really depends on what you're talking about with regard to accessibility specifically. But, like, no, we have no intention right now of, let's stop everything that we're doing and make it so 0.05% of people who want to build websites with keyboards can do that with Etch. That's not what we're interested in doing right now.
Yeah, right. And to add some context, we did get in touch very early in the process. It was September of last year with somebody who is very big in accessibility, to just, when the time is right, to do an accessibility audit. Just now is not the right time. Next question. Will you provide a path or recommendation for migrating a site from bricks to Etch? Or will we have to rebuild the site from scratch?
Yeah, there's already a 75% of a pathway there. What you're going to be able to do, can I think of sites like, I think I changed all my sites. Well, no, automatic CSS is still on bricks, right? So let's go there for a second. You're going to be able to do this one of two ways, okay? Let's say I wanted to steal this section right here, okay? And you could steal entire pages, you could steal sections, whatever you want to do. You would come and you would grab the HTML from the inspector, right? And you would go paste it into Etch. You can already do this, actually. You can already do this, and it will paste all of the HTML, and it will attach all of the selectors, okay? So any selectors that were used here, any BIM selectors, all that stuff will be attached automatically in Etch. And if the page was using BIM, just a side benefit, the structure panel will label itself according to those blocks and elements using the BIM class names as labels, right? So all of that already works. You can already do that. The question is, how do you get the CSS? Okay. So what we're going to be able to do, and I think this is already like 75% done, and then we just left it alone for a while because we needed to do other stuff. But I think Chris could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is like literally 75% built already, and there's just a little ways to go on it. But you're going to be able to grab that URL and go into Etch and say, I need the styles for this stuff that I just pasted, essentially. And it's going to see what you pasted. It's going to look at those selectors, and it's going to go find them in the style sheet on this site, and it's going to import them. So you're not going to import like an entire style sheet. It's like an intelligent importer almost. And that's going to allow you to really go to any website on the web and just be like, I'll take that HTML. And then, yes, I need the styles for that as well. And now you're working with that exact replica inside of Etch. That is going to be possible. And it's not just possible, but I think it's as soon as we decide to prioritize it, we're not far off from making it actually happen.
Yeah. And I remember we worked on that feature a while ago.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Will we be when will images be editable in the block editor needed for my clients who want to be able to edit page contents?
Images editable in the block editor. Does that mean just swapping the image in the block editor?
Because I think that already works.
I think that already works. I think there's already a control for that. So yeah, I would need to know what they mean by editing.
Yeah, Gerson, if you can clarify that. Meanwhile, next question was, how does the new beta release of Bricks with the query API and components as blocks compare to Etch's features? I'd say they got some Etch inspiration.
It's, you know, I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes with, I think they're working with the Guten Bricks team, perhaps. So some of that stuff, I don't technically know how they're executing it. Like, for example, are they using core blocks? You know, I don't know the technical differences because I haven't bothered looking at it yet. The thing that would stand out immediately is that it only works for components, where Etch works with everything. So literally everything you build in Etch is authored to core blocks. On that side, it's only components. You have to opt in, I believe, to it happening. It doesn't happen automatically. In Etch, it happens automatically. It's a full experience in Etch. It's not a pseudo experience. There's just, I mean, like, you know, what is the benefit of authoring a component to the block editor when the rest of your page isn't authored to the block editor? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a little disconnect on what is actually supposed to happen there. And then, you know, API stuff, we could do it anytime. We haven't prioritized it yet. The reason we have JSON loops, the JSON loops are the architecture for third-party API loops. We just didn't do the next step in the process of actually doing the third-party API integrations because there was other more pressing stuff. But it can be added anytime we want to add it. Anytime we have a meeting and decide, hey, now's a good time, let's do it, we will do it. Or if we, you know, there's some scenarios where we personally run into, like, we're building something and we're like, okay, I need a third, well, you know, we build the product, so we can prioritize it if we need it. You know, if a lot of users are like, hey, we desperately need this, obviously we do it. But so far, nobody's beating down our door saying they have to have third-party API data, or we would have already done it. So it's not far off. We can do it at any time. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a question, and I'm sure you're gonna be able to identify who asked.
Okay.
How is this better than breakdance?
Ruben, thank you for the question. Did he do that as a super chat? Because if he didn't do that as a super chat,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
You're not buying me coffee, Ruben. I got no reason to answer.
No answer.
Yeah.
No answer.
No.
Right. So
he already knows the answer, by the way. He already knows.
Yeah, he does. All right. So instead of a serious question, what are the future add-ons in the marketplace going to be? Hard to jump and buy because of these uncertainties.
Okay. I mean, it's a pretty easy answer, and there's no reason to have uncertainty, because we've tried to be as clear as possible that Etch is going to allow you to do all the things that you need to do. You can see all the stuff that it already does. There are significant things in Etch that we could have been, if we wanted to play like the add-on game, we could have made them add-ons. We're actually trying to avoid add-ons at all costs. We don't want you to need add-ons. The only planned add-ons right now deal with things like WooCommerce specific functionality, which, by the way, we can already pull WooCommerce data into loops and all of this other stuff. You can literally build this, what looks like a fully functional e-commerce site. We don't have any pre-built elements for like a checkout system or a cart system or any of that kind of stuff. We will be building that kind of stuff. That is going to be an add-on, right? The only other add-on that's planned is version control. And that would be because, you know, enterprise people care most about that. And it would be mainly for that. And we're going to do our absolute best to make that like a full Git integration of some kind. Not some like pseudo version control type stuff. Like, you know, if we can go full Git, we would like to do that, because I don't think anybody else does. So, and of course, if we're going to put that significant time and effort into something that a large percent of the user base may not ever use or find value in, but only enterprise or bigger users, that makes sense to make that kind of thing an add-on. So That's it. That's all that's planned. The marketplace is not for us to sell you more things. The marketplace is, for example, Nick Ars, right? Or any number of talented designers and developers and Etch users. They build things, or Design with Kraka, for example, right? Both of them, by the way, have mega menu components that they sell for bricks and maybe breakdance, I don't know. They are going to want to build and sell those things for Etch. And for the people who want their product, their mega menu component, you're going to be able to buy that kind of stuff through the marketplace or independent of the marketplace as well. Design systems, design packs, component packs, card component packs, right? You're going to be able to maybe perhaps even buy like prefab loop configurations of maybe specific JSON data loops and all this other stuff that maybe is common to certain use cases on websites. Like there's going to be a lot of stuff that is essentially plug and play that other people can create that they're going to want to sell in the marketplace. That's what it's for. It's for like, man, that would really make my life easier. Man, that would really make my life easier. Oh, thank you for making that, right? It's not, oh gosh, I need this core functionality of doing my job and they made it an add-on and stuck it in the marketplace. That's not the idea of the marketplace.
Yeah. Okay, so one little follow-up on the, I can change the images in Gutenberg. I actually tested it and you're right, Gerson, I can't either. So we're gonna look into that. Next up, is Etch going to have any filters like Bricks does? So add filter, add action. Yeah, there's gonna be a bunch for sure, wherever they're needed. And whenever some of you find a place where you're like, oh, I wish I had a filter to control this, or I could inject an action when Etch is doing this, you can let us know and we'll evaluate if we can add it. I would treat it as needed kind of thing. So we're not gonna preemptively put a bunch of filters and actions unless they're really needed. But when they're needed, we're gonna evaluate and add them. So other question, along with version control, might there be an add-on for global content across multiple sites or maybe staging sites within Etch? That's interesting. I don't think we've ever basically a multi-site.
Yeah,
multi-site.
That's what I was about to say. They need to use multi-site. That's what multi-site is literally designed for.
Yeah, even though with multi-site, there's still some limitations. Like it's not that easy to do, even with multi-site. I think what specifically they were thinking about, but it might be part of a multi-site.
I mean, I heard from two. I don't know. I heard from two users already who, because I hardly ever use multi-site. I just don't find a need for it, and I haven't tested Etch on multi-site. But I've had two users come to me and tell me that Etch is working flawlessly in multi-site and they're able to do stuff like you just described. So I would at least go that route and see. And then again, come to us. We've always said, come to us and say, hey, this is like mission critical. Can you guys make it happen? And it's going to depend on the scope of work, and it's going to depend on how many other people are, saying that kind of thing. But so far from the multi-site users that have contacted me, they're really happy with how it's going.
Yeah, there's just a question about from Robin, who says that he just finished a multi-site install with the broadcast plugin. So that's to synchronize data between multiple sites.
Yeah.
There may be good cases, especially when you start thinking about like multilingual. Some people do multilingual through multi-site.
Yeah.
So yeah, reach out to us. Let us know how you're planning to use or using multi-site, and we can take a look at like ways that we can support that.
I got a hard stop in 4 minutes, so let's go maybe 2 more questions.
All right, there's an easy one. Can we make templates for a term inside of a taxonomy? The answer is, I think not yet, but we talked about it. So that was the idea that like you have the taxonomy for the template for a taxonomy right now applies to all terms of a taxonomy, but like if you want to do a specific individual one, You can probably customize it with dynamic data. I don't know if we have dynamic data to like
conditions.
Is this the term slug? Yeah. And if it's the term slug, then
you can for sure. You can do it for sure.
That's good. But we also talked about making it possible to have templates that target a specific term in a taxonomy.
And the reason it's not is because, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not default WordPress architecture. That's like...
No, well, so taxonomy term templates work a little differently than custom post type templates. There's no real archive. If you have a taxonomy called, I don't know, genres, there's no /genre template. If you go to that URL, WordPress defaults to a 404. Mm-hmm. And all templates really apply to the terms under that. And we right now support the most generic way of targeting those, which is to target all the terms. But in the template hierarchy, you could go narrower and target an individual one. That I don't know that there's a way to hack it in Etch right now, but there might be a way in the future. Like we've already identified this as a possible shortcoming, and we might address it. Let's see if there's any other question real quick. Will Etch components block authoring create blocks that are completely independent from Etch, similar to how Pinegrow, where you can even disable Etch and those blocks still work as if native? I don't know, because even though this was one of the things that we low-key wanted to achieve, that you can disable Etch and the website still works. But there are certain things that, because there's no real native way to do it in Gutenberg, we have to stuff that information in metadata, and then we have to parse it and have it do something. I know it's like this with loops. It's like this with conditions. I think it's like this with probably with styling. And so I don't know that, like, at some point maybe we'll take a look at, but I don't know. It might not be simple to do. I don't know if there's anybody from the lab team that has more experience in that area of the code base than I, who wants to chime in.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be competitively insanely advantageous to be able to create like a hero pattern in Etch and then just like detach it, and like just people can use it in a default WordPress installation. And maybe static stuff like that eventually gets to that point. But you're limited, and websites these days are so dynamic and should be dynamic. And anytime you're doing a lot of that, there's got to be, the processing's got to be there somewhere. And Gutenberg's just not capable of doing it without literally creating custom blocks, and diving into React and all their other nonsense that they've got going on. And people don't, very few people want to live that life.
All right. If we have time for one more, David asks, can you make Woo templates work soon? Just need basic functionality, and a pass-through has issues with Woo. Can you clarify what the issues with the pass-through are?
It might be any pass-through issues.
Maybe if we are really short on time, if you can like either open a post on the community or a support ticket, and we can take a look at what the issues are.
Yeah, because I know right now, if you pass through, I do it on Geary Co. Like I pass through a SureCart checkout form onto the inner circle page, right? And it passes through just fine, and it functions just fine. Like, I'm running essentially like a membership site checkout system in Etch, when Etch has no functionality related to that, right? And I'm doing it through a third-party system called SureCart, which has blocks, and I add the block and it passes through Etch, because Etch has a pass-through system where it essentially like lets that thing go to the front end without breaking it, right? Without changing it. And that's working. That's actually been working for a very long time. It's one of the first things that we did in Gutenberg, because we recognized the need to be like WS Form, for example. I have WS Forms all over our sites that are built with Etch. How are we doing that? It's just We're just using the block in Gutenberg and it passes through Etch. And yeah, that should all work without an issue. So if you have checkout blocks and cart blocks and whatever else you need for Woo, you could literally build a site right now in Woo with Etch.
All right. How are you doing on time?
I think we got to call it. Yeah. We'll be back. We do this at the end of every month. So last Friday, I think we're going to, I like the idea of doing it on Friday. So the last Friday of every month, we'll plan to do these. And then of course, if you're in the community, if you're an Etch user, if you're an Etch license holder and you're in the community, you can, obviously get the tutorials on this stuff all the time. Watch the YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed. You get to ask questions at any time, give your feedback at any time. There will be specific posts where we specifically ask for feedback on a new feature. Look out for those. Use those new things as they come out and pass along that feedback. That's how this stuff gets better faster, and that's why it's already as good as it is, because of the level of user participation. Okay, so that's it. We'll put this one in the books, and we'll see you guys again next month. 4 days left, I think, on the FlexPay LTDs before those go away. So if you don't have your license secured yet and you were eyeing that FlexPay situation, grab that now, because that's going to be gone. The prepay LTD will still be there, but the FlexPay, if you were needing that for budget reasons or whatever, is going to be gone in 3 or 4 days, October 1st. Okay. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.